Welcome back on board the Starship, and I'm talking with David Cayton, who has researched the animal mutilation phenomenon for many years. And we mentioned in the first part, David, that possibly this phenomenon extends to human beings. And it's a very disturbing fact, or some would say it's not a fact, some dispute this, it's highly controversial. But the record of possible human body parts or human remains goes back to the 1940s, I believe, when there's alleged UFOs that were recovered contained human body parts.
Yeah. Okay, you could argue, and it's fairly reasonable to say, it's sort of hearsay and rumour. But my view is there's no smoke without fire. And these bits of information have sort of leaked out and passed around from A to B by word of mouth. And with all the evidence sort of building up, I think there's a possible case that this is a fact. And there's one particular case which we'll discuss in Brazil from '88, which I think is pretty compelling.
Okay, so if we move forward to the 1950s, there was a case in 1956 of a reported human mutilation at White Sands missile testing range.
Yeah.
You've got any information on that, David?
Well, again, this has come from a gentleman who investigated a Brazilian case of '88, which we'll come to, and he claims he's spoken to intelligence agency persons, one retired and one in post, who were involved in that, and reported that a major and the sergeant Pete Louette were searching downrange of the missile testing for a missile that's been returned or debris or whatever.
Right.
And the major witnessed this craft come down and a sort of coil thing come out, wrap itself around Sergeant Louette and whisked him up screaming into the sky. And he was missing. And when the major got back to base to report this, at first they thought they accused him of murder. And he confessed to killing the sergeant. But I think they only found his body 5 days later.
Yes.
With the same sort of mutilations, like genitals removed, anal core, etc., which was very similar to the animals.
And moving on from that, another rumoured case, again, there's no sort of firm testimony, but it's rumoured that in Vietnam in the 60s, in the Vietnam War, a B-52 bomber was found intact in the jungle, and there's no way it could have landed.
Yeah, it wasn't crashed as though it crashed. It was pretty intact, the aircraft, And then they found the crew all dead with the mutilation injuries on the bodies. And I think their ID tags had been mixed up as well, which suggested they'd been removed from the aircraft and put back.
Okay. And do you know if they were clothed?
No, I don't know.
But okay. But again, there's no hard evidence of this, so we need to stipulate that.
Yeah.
And moving forward in time again to the probably the most prominent human mutilation case and the most controversial is the Garapiranga case in Brazil of 1988. And we've got photographs here. And if you are squeamish and you don't want to see photographs of a dead man, switch off your television now. The first one here is of the whole body. Would you care to comment on that, David?
Yes. Well, these were police photographs actually taken of this, what they thought was a homicide. And they're not very good pictures. The lighting wasn't good.
Yes.
And the second or third generation images. But you'll notice that his stomach area is very dipped, so lots of organs have found to be removed from small holes in his abdomen, his belly button area. And he had, starting at the head end.
So starting at the head,
yes.
What appears to be the classic jaw strip that we have seen in these sheep cases.
Yes, completely round, teeth intact, his tongue had been removed, ears removed, and all the auditory organs into the brain, both eyes,
and optical organs. There of the back of the head with a hole. Is that a hole in the ear there?
Yes, that was just showing one side.
Right.
His ear cropped right close. And then in his arm, he got a small spherical hole, a little bit of blood trickling out, but you'll see the muscle is
so they've actually took the muscle tissue.
The muscle's being sort of removed through this small hole. Yep. So there's little holes in his cranium as well, so they think brain samples have been taken.
Right.
So
very small holes, which are clearly not done by a predator because of their sort of uniform, almost teardrop shape holes. So that it's not been done by an animal, and it clearly does look as though organs have been removed from the body through small holes, which is what happens in the animal mutilation cases.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And then finally we've got the classic rectal core. And, you know, it's not very pleasant, I'm sure. But, you know, this is probably the best evidence. Would you agree? These photographs, along with the report?
Yes, there was a report by Mr. Shellhorn, who went to Brazil and interviewed some of the leading Brazilian ufologists. And two of the ufologists came upon this accidentally, well, intentionally, because a relative, the police photographer that took the images, was a cousin to, I think it was Dr. Ruben Goers, who was one of the investigators in UFOs, and he had a clue that this was significant and similar to the animals, and these two ufologists, Goer and Garcia, went to interview the two police medical doctors who carried out the post-mortem, and got a copy of that. And then they showed these two medical doctors copies of some of the animal mutilation pictures, and they all had to agree, well, they agreed quite easily that they were very, very similar.
Right.
You know, precision cuts and surgical procedures, basically.
Well, yes, and when I was researching the information for Silent Killers, I interviewed Linda Moulton Howe, who has investigated the animal mutilation phenomenon in America. And we did discuss that, and she's of the opinion that humans are not at risk from this phenomenon, and I've got an audio clip of what she had to say.
I do not think that whatever we're dealing with wants to appear to humans as being interested in killing and mutilating humans. They don't. There's no hard forensic evidence that is the case.
There was one case, I believe, in Brazil where there was a jaw strip and all the other signs of mutilation.
Oh, you're talking about the photos that Gavard presented in Nevada in the early 90s, and enrages me. He had not one shred of evidence beyond the photographs. The photographs were sent to me because he never had the courtesy to even contact me, to even ask me what I thought of the photographs, but used my name in the presentation as this is like the animal mutilations that Linda Moulton Howe has investigated. Untrue and absolutely unprofessional, and the wrong way to present anything to an audience when he has done no research of what I call research. And let me give you the backstory. So somebody tells me that this man from Brazil has done this and sends me those photographs. And I take the photographs to a medical doctor. I did not set up anything. I just put the photos down in front of a medical doctor and said, if you had a victim in front of you like this, what would you conclude? Without missing a beat, the medical doctor said, oh, I saw a lot of that in Vietnam. I said, what do you mean? He said, that's what Agent Orange does to human tissue or any tissue. I said, well, what do you mean Agent Orange does this? He said, in Vietnam, we always had, because he worked in a medvac team in Vietnam, he said, we were always spraying Agent Orange, and we were always seeing animals and humans that had these deep penetration holes surrounded by the black carbon ring because we're a carbon life form, and Agent Orange always leaves black circles around penetrating wounds in flesh because we're a carbon-based life form, and that's what Agent Orange does. And everything on those photos could be explained as a revenge murder using Agent Orange.
Okay, then what do you think of that then, David? These images show Agent Orange.
Well, I just looked up Agent Orange on the internet, and it doesn't seem to, the chemical that we're using doesn't seem to cause these sort of injuries. You get skin damage and sort of superficial skin burn, but not at depth, and certainly would need holes and extract large body organs through those holes, and it affects the people who get deformities and limb deformities, and their offspring, when they have children, are also deformed. It's those more long-term effects, in fact, from what I have read. And I would like to just point out that Professor Tony Fremont, when he came to my house with Tony Dodd, after he said he'd agree with me, we wanted to show him animal pictures, and Tony Dodd brought these images, and Professor Fremont looked at these and said, I don't see how we can do this, and he was talking about the role we, the medical profession. Okay.
And he's a professor of pathology.
Yes, in human pathology, not animals. So, yes. Okay, he may not have been au fait with all the effects of Agent Orange, but I'm pretty sure he realised this was more than superficial attack from some chemical on the outer body.
Okay. Now, moving closer to home, David, there is anecdotal evidence that this has occurred in the UK, is there not?
Yes. Yeah.
And Tony Dodd has covered it in his book Alien Investigator, the incident at Dalby Forest. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, well, only that Tony told me quite some years ago.
Tony Dodd was a serving police sergeant, I think?
Yeah, he was a sergeant, yeah. And even though he'd retired from the force, he was getting information from various people, which he wouldn't obviously disclose who they were. And he said up in North Yorkshire, near Pickering, there's a big forest area. In fact, there's a forest ride. You can do a circular tour. And he said in one particular field, 7 human bodies were all found within a space of about a week, 10 days, something like that. I don't know if it's 1 at a time or 2 at a time. I don't know that detail, and Tony didn't either.
These were naked?
Naked bodies, and they had these classic similar wounds.
Right.
And all the bodily hair was also removed, not just the hair in the genital areas, but in the arms, all the bodily hair was totally missing.
This was the late 80s, early 90s, that sort of time?
Yes, I think so, yes, yeah.
Okay, and when I first put Silent Killers out, a gentleman watched the film and contacted me and said, why on earth are you making a film about animal mutilation when human mutilation is far more important? I know all about it. I gave Tony Dodd a whole load of information that I'd uncovered. And the gentleman I then said to him, well, okay, well, I'd like to interview you if you know about cases of human mutilation in the UK. Yeah. And I've kind of offered to interview him several times. I even went down to South Wales where he lives, so he will know who I am. And if you're listening, the offer's still there. You can come into the studio and tell us what you know about human mutilation in the Brecon Beacon area. Because that particular case, he was allegedly shown photographs by somebody in a special unit of the SAS. The photographs were so shocking that he then went to the police. In 1997, this gentleman had apparently put a poster up in the Brecon Beacon area asking people if they'd witnessed any UFOs, and he was contacted by this ex-SAS soldier, who then showed him photographs of cases that he had been employed to cover up in the special unit that he was employed in. The name of that unit, I believe, was called Group 58 Security. So anyone who has any information on this alleged secret SAS group, we'd love to hear from you. And the email address is starship@richplanet.net. Okay, and it is believed or rumoured, again, it's more rumours, that Margaret Thatcher was told by Reagan to set up this group. Yeah, you heard that one, David?
That's what I'd heard, yes. That they had this special relationship. Encouraged Margaret Thatcher to do that in the UK, because whether they already knew there'd been UK ones or it was just an in case, so they're ready and prepared to deal with the contingency, I don't know.
And just to talk about the broad picture, because people will be saying, well, why are they doing this? What is their program? Why animals? Why humans? Why what can we say? What do we know that we can say of the motives?
Well, That's the big question.
That
isn't
is
it?
the big question.
Why are they doing it? And why do they need these organs and blood, etc.? I think it's all to do with human DNA and the progression and tinkering with human beings who probably put us here in the first place, and we are sort of a program. And I don't know. It might be for their survival, for themselves.
There is the theory that they're effectively using these animals as incubators or factories to generate, whether it be some kind of antibody or something that they're growing inside them that they then take and extract from the blood, and possibly we hope to bring out some information on that, but it's sort of ongoing research, isn't it, David?
But I mean, this is happening to all life forms, and sea mammals, for example, birds, even mice, not just bovine animals, obviously sheep and what have you. So it's hard to accept that if there is some sort of disease or problem they are growing something, why would they do it in all their life forms?
And if you believe the abduction program is going on, i.e. human beings are being taken without their knowledge, their memories are erased, and what abductees generally report is that the ETs have a hybridization program, so that they're creating some kind of, whether they're hybridizing, making, adding DNA to humans or taking human DNA to aliens, but perhaps it's linked to that in some way. Perhaps they need they're growing antibodies that they then need to protect their hybrids, or, perhaps it's linked.
Yeah, well, certainly one abductee, after hypnosis, is reported to have found himself in a craft or something, in a room anyway, and close by was a cow. And this poor person observed this cow attached to all sorts of tubes and things, and obviously these sort of mutilations going on, and was reassured telepathically that don't worry, this isn't going to happen to you.
Right.
So that they were a bit insensitive in that case to have the animal being worked on in close proximity to the human being.
Yes, and medical experts that have looked at mutilated bovines claim that it's possibly being done while the animal is alive. That the blood is extracted while the animal's alive, and the incisions are cut into the animal while it's still alive. And perhaps this poor chap here, was still alive while that was happening to him.
I hope not, but it's possible. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, on that note, David, I'd like to thank you for coming in again onto the Starship.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And
we'll
get you beamed back down to Manchester.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Good night.
I will be speaking in Newcastle upon Tyne on Thursday the 7th of October 2010. Doors open at 7 p.m.